Hi, this is Mike Dierks, Regional Missionary Coordinator for the Presbytery of Ohio, the August video 2026. And this month, we're talking to all three of the presenters that are going to be at the Home Missions Conference on September 19th in Sewickley, Ohio at Grace Church. There'll be information both on the screen as well as in the comment section on how to register. But we're going to be looking at three different ways of planting a church: mother-daughter, the core group or seed group, and a parachute. So one will be David Myron. We'll have Larry Oldacre talking, as well as Brad Peppo. So we're going to talk to each one of those and just get a little insight from them, a little kind of a tickler, as it were, to what they're going to be talking about, why it would be good to come and learn about this way of planting a church. So first, I'm going to welcome David Myron from Bread of Life there in Troy, Ohio. So David, welcome. You're a mother-daughter church plant. Mother Church is the Covenant Church in Vandalia, Ohio. So just tell us a little bit. Do you have a story, something that you want to share on how this has benefited the kingdom of God?
Yeah, hi Mike. Thanks for having me. Happy to share a little bit about Bread of Life. We started in 2024 as a daughter church from Covenant in Vandalia. They had kind of outgrown their sanctuary and were getting a little uncomfortable. So they took a group of folks from their church and said, why don't you guys go north to Troy, about 20, 30 minutes, and we'll try to reach new people with the good news of Christ. And that's really what we've been doing. So we've been meeting for a year and a half, nearly 2 years now, and just preaching Christ crucified every week. It looks like a normal church in many ways. It acts like a church. It has the marks of a church, but we're doing it in a new place. So there's all kinds of new outreach. Like uh, just this afternoon, I was able to do chaplain work in the hospital about a minute down the road from where we worship every day or every Sunday, and just able to share the gospel with folks there. But one of the cool stories, just unique to Bread of Life, I would point out, is just that generational connection to the kingdom of God. We have my first baptism that I ever performed was a little girl named Katie, and Katie was the daughter of Daniel. About 30 years ago, Daniel was Charles Jackson's first baptism at Covenant when they were a plant from Redeemer. And so Daniel's daughter was then my first baptism here in Troy. And we just see that story of God's kingdom growing through word and through the waters of baptism and the bread and wine at the supper, week by week being administered faithfully. Just that good news continues to grow and envelop Ohio and really the world.
Yeah,
So it's
great. And that's one of the benefits of the mother-daughter is that hard connect between the mother church and the daughter church and just the growing organic growth there. So thank you. And I'm looking forward to having you give us a lot more detail, giving kind of the ins and outs, maybe pull back the curtain a little bit on the mother-daughter. There's some good things. There's also some challenges, and so we'll get to learn those as well. So I'm looking forward to that, David. Thank you for being one of the presenters.
thank you.
Yeah, and God bless. So our next interview is with Reverend Larry Oldacre, retired minister and a longtime RHM here in the Presbytery of Ohio. And Larry has planted multiple churches. He's going to give you a little bit of background on that, but he's going to be talking at the conference about the seed group planting, church planting from a seed group. So Larry, welcome. Share a little bit about yourself and then what kind of blessing is there in a seed group? Maybe you have a story or some kind of why is that a benefit to the kingdom of God?
Hmm. Well, I guess we could start with the kind of the overview, I suppose. I've been around the block a few times. Probably did church planting. I was active in church planting for about 35 years out of my 40 years of ministry. But even as I was reflecting on this, my first church that I served in was in Western Pennsylvania. And it was a church that had come out of the mainline Presbyterian church and was independent. Their property was uh, they were in court over their property, I guess. So I was a PCA minister at the time. I was just out of the seminary for about a year, was looking for a call. I ended up becoming their pastor, working out of bounds. But believe it or not, that experience set me up for church planting, because they were basically not taught well, living in a small town north of Pittsburgh, Butler County, Pennsylvania, kind of isolated. And I came in enthusiastic about Reformed theology and doing expository preaching. And it's like the light started going off on people, And we still have a longtime friend who is now a member of an OP church in Western Pennsylvania because of that ministry. And it's not me, it's just that the Lord used us. And so my point is that even at that point, I was discipling people, and God used that. It was a group that in many ways was isolated. They were isolated from their presbytery, they were isolated from all that. And so that started it. I went from there to a church plant in upstate New York, or Western New York, actually, and the PCA. And that was the first church plant that I did. It was already kind of handed to me because the previous organizing pastor became ill, had to leave. The presbytery asked me to come in and basically finish it up. But it was a group that was isolated from other churches. In fact, I was working out of bounds again. I was technically out of the geographical bounds of our presbytery in the PCA at the time. And again, discipling people that had heard something about the Reformed theology. There was a couple of key families, and they had gathered others around, and we began doing outreach. And that church is still going. And people have mentioned it's just south of Houghton College, and I've had people contact me and say, "Hey, I didn't know you started that church, because my daughter or son goes to Houghton College, whatever." And so that was another instance of that. And actually, all four church plants that I was actively involved in as the organizing pastor were seed groups. And I have spent most of my ministerial career, as I say, on the fringes. I used to joke and say that's where they kept me because it was safer that way. Uh, but that's what it was. And so what's the blessing? Well, the blessing is that I got to watch people have those aha moments. I mean, there's nothing greater, when watching God's providence is he brings people together and you're teaching from the scriptures and you're explaining how the doctrine fits together. And that's what Reformed theology does. It puts all the pieces together. And they go, "Oh, I believe this and I believe that, but I didn't know how it got connected." And they have these aha moments. And you just watch the light bulbs go off. And that just thrilled me. I mean, that's just cool. And that excited me. And so throughout my career ministry of doing church planting, I basically was the guy that God would use to go minister that seed group, go minister that seed group, and that's what happened. And I would just explain the Bible. I just open it up and I just start teaching the Bible. And you can't miss Reformed theology when you do that. And you just watch people just light up, and they get excited and they come around to really getting involved in the church. So I think that's the blessing. And I think for whether it's me or anybody, um, if you like to meet with people and you like to talk with them and you like to disciple, it gives you that chance to do it. So this is how people in local church can get involved by having a Bible study in their house, for instance,
Yeah.
and just start telling them what you know. And I think that's a great blessing.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. We'll look forward to kind of fleshing that out a little bit more at the conference where you'll dig deeper into what's a seed group. How do you know when it's a seed group versus just a couple of people kind of curious, or how does that curiosity blossom into a seed group, and kind of the ins and outs. We'll pull back the curtain a little bit and see, what are the challenges as well as the blessings. So I'm looking forward to having you presenting at the conference. And again, that'll be on September 19th, and more information in the comment section and on the screen, everybody. So thank you, Larry, and look forward to seeing you next month.
Looking forward to it.
Well, welcome. Brad Peppo is going to be our next speaker here, introducing what he's doing with the Parachute church plant. So kind of out in the middle of nowhere, starting a church from ground zero. So Brad, welcome. Looking forward to having you speak on the 19th, but kind of tell everybody kind of a little bit about you and what are some of the blessings that you find in a parachute drop that you may never have had if you hadn't done that.
Okay, thanks, Mike. So first of all, a little bit about me. I have been acting in some kind of regional home missionary capacity since 2013. And part of that has been apologetic engagement with groups at universities. We've had now a 4-year ministry where we've been meeting with Muslims. So a lot of variety, a lot of different people outside the Christian faith that I've been interacting with. But primarily what I've been doing is being involved in church plants. And for actually all of the projects up until this last one I was working on, there was always some sort of impetus from a family or from a group already in existence that they reached out to us. And we got, I think as a presbytery, we got pretty efficient at responsive church planting where there was a need that we knew about. And there were people there that we knew wanted us to work there. One of the things, though, that as I was kind of working through my career as a church planter was really thinking through what is it that we do and how would we go about it if, let's say, we didn't have a family, we didn't have a core group. What would it look like just to drop into a place, and how would I go about that? So about 2 years ago, an opportunity of that sort presented itself in some work that I was invited to do in Arizona. And so I chose a target, chose a city where I didn't know a single person there. It was a very intimidating, sort of overwhelming thing to undertake. But that's what I had been doing for the last year and a half up till June. I'll just talk a little bit about the approach that I took. What I did was I sort of looked at my different interests that I had and thought about, okay, what are some things that I like to do that would provide opportunities for me to interact with folks, and particularly to interact with folks on something of a deeper level. And so I had had an interest in photojournalism all the way back to my high school days. I had played around with some writing and played around with some photography. And so I decided that would be the approach that I would take. That would be my way of meeting people. I started a blog project, started writing some stories about local interest and some history and ecology and things in the place I was. But then I would introduce myself to folks that I met in the community and say, this is a project I'm working on. And one aspect of it is focusing on worldview of the people that live in this place that I'm studying. And so that yielded several hours and hours and hours of conversations with folks that were outside of the Christian faith that I got to know. And so that was particularly rewarding. I mean, I like a good adventure. And so just dropping in and not knowing how something was going to go, not knowing if anything was going to happen. I'm pleased to say that there is still a group meeting in Cottonwood for worship every Sunday and having studies and things like that. So there is something left behind of the fruit of what I undertook there. But just that unknown, that opportunity to take and sort of leverage your particular interests and skill sets and meeting new people and exploring a new place. That's what I've enjoyed about this. I still feel like there's lots to learn. There are things that I would do differently if I were put in that situation again, which I hope to be. I hope that's not my last opportunity to do that. But that's been my experience.
Awesome. So we'll get a lot deeper, a lot more details on that at the conference. You'll get to uncover, I call kind of stepping behind the curtain and see the good, some of the challenges, some of the obstacles, and in your case, lessons learned that you can take on to the next, and really kind of not just you, but think, how does this apply to a church that may not be able to send somebody to Arizona, but maybe down the street or out onto the streets? And, how does that look? Maybe not church planting, but church harvesting.
Sure.
Where does that look? So we'll look at that and more things on the 19th. Looking forward to it, Brad. Appreciate you taking some time. Thank you.
Yeah, looking forward to being there. Thanks, Mike.
So now we've heard from all three of our guest speakers, David, Larry, and Brad. I hope you're excited about this conference, September 19th. It'll be at Sewickley, 10 o'clock until 2 o'clock. Lunch will be served. Be a great opportunity. There'll be a Q&A time, a panel discussion time, so you'll be able to interact with everybody. Looking forward to seeing you there. I hope you can join us. Remember to register. There's a QR code. There's a poster you can put up at your church, and share this video with as many as you would like. God bless, and look forward to seeing you in September.